All right, I'm here to help you with number 4, A, B, C, D. So number 4A says, show that the derivative equals blah, blah, blah. So we don't even look at this. We just start by taking the derivative. So we have y equals x to the 1/2 times 3 minus x to the squared. Okay, so this, I'm going to start out with product rule. It's like a product rule chain rule, okay? So I'm going to do the derivative of the first is 1/2 x to the power of negative 1/2 times the second as it is, plus the derivative of the second is, now we have to do chain rule. So the derivative of the outside, leaving the inside the same, times the derivative of the inside, times the first function. Okay, so what we have is, we have 3 minus x squared over 2 root x minus, because of that negative. And then you know what, I would usually distribute this, but I'm not going to, because you might notice we have like a like term there. So I'm going to say 2 times 3 minus x times root x. Okay, so now we can look at this and we see, oh, they've added these fractions. So to add fractions, we need to have a common denominator. And the common denominator is going to be 2 root x. So I'm going to multiply by 2 root x over 2 root x. Okay, so again, I have 3 minus x squared minus 2 times 3 minus x, and then root x times root x is x, because root x times root x is root x squared, which is just x, okay? And then also times 2, and this will be all over 2 root x, okay? Now, I think what they did is they realized that they had a 3 minus x in both terms, and they're going to factor out the 3 minus x. So they're factoring out, and then here's where they're going to write what they're left with. So they're left with a 3 minus x. They're left with minus, and I'm going to put a parentheses here to make sure I distribute everything. So minus 2 times x times 2. All over 2 root x, okay? Sorry, this is like a little bit confusing. So I have y prime equals, this is what I factored out. Now I'm going to simplify in here. This is 4x. So I have 3 minus x minus 4x, that's 3 minus 5x all over 2 root x. Woo, we got there. Okay, so what we had to do is we had to make a common denominator. Then what we had to do was we factored out the 3 minus x because it was in both terms. We wrote what was left over, and then we simplified. Okay? Now B says find the x-coordinates of all the points on this where the tangent is horizontal. So remember, the tangent is a horizontal. Horizontal has a slope of 0, so that means that this slope is equal to 0. So we need to set this slope, we need to set the derivative equal to 0. Now remember, where the denominator is equal to 0 is where the function is undefined. Where the numerator equals to 0 is where the function equals to 0. So we're just going to set the numerator equal to 0, and I'm going to set each term equal to 0. So I get x equals 3, and I get x equals 3/5. Okay. All right, and then that brings us to part C. It says for what values is the derivative undefined? So there's a couple things going on here. First, remember that it's undefined where the denominator equals to 0. And we need to remember that underneath the square root must be greater than or equal to 0. So basically, let's start with this first one. I need the denominator equal to 0, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and then square both sides. So it's undefined when x equals to 0. And remember that all x's need to be greater than or equal to 0, so that means that it's undefined when x is negative. So it's undefined when x is 0 or when x is negative. Therefore, it's undefined when x is less than or equal to 0. Okay? I'm sorry this is such a mess. I hope that helps. Have a wonderful day.